On the screen, we have a chart that I charted back in 2018. You can see Bitcoin was trading back here just above $3,000. On this chart, what I want to point out to you is right here. This was March 2020. This was COVID, an area that nobody anticipated, an area that I want to remind you at the forefront of this video. I want to highlight this. Bitcoin, crypto, altcoins survived that time. And it was a very terrible time. And it was a black swan event type of scenario. And I want to discuss why that is so important with the current state of crypto and where we are right now. One of the biggest comments that I'm getting is crypto has never survived something like this. It's different this time. The cycles of crypto, the cycles of Bitcoin and the Bitcoin halvings, they don't mean anything because crypto's never survived rising inflation and rising interest rates and just a recession and FTX falling, Luna, Celsius, all the negativity, all of these things that are kind of happening right now. Crypto's never survived something like that. And I agree, it's true. Crypto has never survived something like that. But I want to remind you, if we go to the actual current Bitcoin chart, look at this. I charted it here and it didn't hit perfectly, but the cycles played out. And here is March 2020. Here is a black swan event. Look at crypto surviving. And even in this mess, people were very fearful of what was going to happen to all markets, but especially crypto, saying crypto might not survive this. This is so bad. And look, crypto did survive it. Crypto went into a bull market just as anticipated in this 2018 chart. So the chart played out. And so as we sit here today and we look at the current state of Bitcoin, we look at the fall of Luna, Celsius, FTX, and we look at the recession that we're in or getting ready to go into, whatever headlines you're looking at. And I can say right now, as I do this video in this bear market low, and again, it's speculative and this is my opinion and my view, but I can say pretty confidently, I think crypto is going to survive. But needless to say, for many of you, if you're not zooming out on these charts and if you're not looking at history and if you're not looking at data, it's easy to get caught up in the headlines. I Googled crypto news and very quickly, these are the headlines. FTX founder says he can't account for billions. Crypto broker Genesis owes Winklevoss exchange customers $900 million. Former FTX users say the failed crypto exchange, Ponzi, FTX downfall threatens crypto existence. Alameda Research invested, and the list goes on. Look at this. Most crypto companies will crash after years of industry Ponzi schemes. Welcome to bear market, bottom range, FUD. That's taking real world data and it's taking real world things that are happening, meaning the collapses of these terrible companies and these companies that have had terrible leadership, and it's infusing it into the macro narrative of crypto. And it's not right. These things are not good events. And these are things that crypto does need to survive. But I will say this, crypto will survive, right? We see all these headlines talking about crypto existence being threatened. And I think if we zoom out and we remind ourselves of some of the things that crypto has been through, namely, just as one example, this piece of the story, we know, or we can at least draw data that suggests crypto will survive all of this and even this bear market and the recession that we're in right now. So I want to talk about why this week is important, and I want to kind of start as a foundational before we dive into the short-term charts, start at the zoomed out charts. And this is the swing low of the last bear market to the swing high of the bull market. Remember, it's all about macro for me, everybody. And Bitcoin is important to me, mainly not for accumulation purposes of Bitcoin, but mainly for accumulation purposes of altcoins and my altcoin plays and what I'm seeing in altcoin markets. Bitcoin acting as a roadmap for me. It's why I cover Bitcoin so much these days. So it's this green rectangle. It's the Fibonacci retracement. If you've been watching my YouTube channel, you know this is an area that is probably most important to me on the macro, but it's a 786 area. The reason why I'm talking about it especially so much lately is just the fact that when we're looking at these charts, Bitcoin has fallen below the 786 line. But not only that, which is a move that Bitcoin has done in previous bear market lows, it's just the fact that on the short term, if we start digging into the daily chart and even to the 6-hour chart, look how Bitcoin is just seeing resistance right now at the 786 line. So you remember we had this descending triangle, Bitcoin fake breakout, finally fell below the lower trend line, And then we fell below the 786 line, and this was right around November 9th. And since then, you can just see Bitcoin has been acting, or 786 line, this yellow line here has been acting as resistance for Bitcoin. So even in the short term. So isn't it crazy? And it consistently is crazy to see how the technical analysis areas that we track so often play out, and they provide themselves with such consistency. They provide us with such a valuable resource. And what I mean by that is, it's no surprise that this 786 line on this daily chart is acting as resistance. This is a macro line that I essentially charted back here in 2018. Look, Bitcoin exiting that bear market, going to a high and back down to a 786. There's a yellow line. And it's precisely what has happened in this bear market, back to a 786. And so when we start zooming in on the chart, of course, to me, it's no surprise the 786 line acting as resistance right now after falling below. It's an area we do want to see Bitcoin get back above and escape more particularly. We want to see it escape and get separation. But right now, this is what's going on. And this is why I think it's a big week ahead. All of this happening, meaning the 786 resistance right now, there's a case for Bitcoin to break above it, but all of this happening as we start looking at traditional markets. The S&P 500 is a chart that we've really, I would say, done a really good job of just tracking throughout this bear market, and it's just set up just perfect technical analysis charting, meaning if we look at the bear market in general, these lower highs have just been so reliable to us. And no surprise, these are Fibonacci lower highs, right? So we're at the most recent one with the 786 line, Bitcoin or S&P 500 not quite touching yet, but falling into this entire range, is 618 to the 786. Previously, these are what the lower highs looked like for S&P. So going into this next week, especially as we close this previous week, this is going to be key for Bitcoin and crypto markets. We know that crypto markets are following the traditional markets. That's just what's happening. It's not that altcoins follow Bitcoin. It's that all crypto, including Bitcoin and altcoins, are following equity markets. So we have this play right now in the S&P 500 chart where it's saying, all right, we've had this recent rally. We're at a lower high, but we've been here before on this chart. And is this week going to lead us a little bit higher to test the 786 and the 50-week moving average right here, that blue line that you see? Or is the resistance going to prove itself and we're going to start falling? These are the two scenarios I'm watching for in the equity markets, because guess what? This is what affects this Bitcoin chart right here. Now, one thing I want to note is this. The US dollar currency index has obviously throughout this bear market, much of the bear market, just rallied like crazy. So because of that, risk on assets have been falling. Things like crypto has been falling. But US dollar currency falling most recently on this weekly. However, we're kind of hitting just above the 50-week moving average. So there's been consolidation, but is it time for one more rally maybe going into the new year? And could this be what translates onto the S&P 500 charts, the Bitcoin charts, your altcoin charts, whatever? Could that be what translates to that last fall, that last dip? That's the biggest story that I'm tracking. Because if we go over here to the S&P 500, I just want to note, and then we're going to look at the crypto charts, there is this kind of bullish divergence happening on the RSI, meaning we had this low. We have a higher low. We have this bullish momentum to the upside, but there's room for potentially one more higher low. And if this happens, we could get a lower low on the charts to bottom out in these markets. That's a huge move I think we should all be watching for right now, especially as we're zooming in on the Bitcoin chart. So here's Bitcoin on the weekly. You see the struggle at the 786. We look at the daily. You see the struggle at the 786 even more particularly on the daily chart. But if we go to the 6 hour, here's kind of the setup that we've been tracking, right? Kind of this move that we've consolidated. It's been very boring for crypto. Even just most recently, since the end of November, it's been extremely boring for crypto. But going into this week, it seems like there's going to be probably a big move. And I say that because after this consolidation, there's kind of this setup for the break above the 786 line, depending on what S&P 500 does, or a fall back to the downside. And the fall to the downside, what I want to show you is this. If we have this kind of trend line that takes us on the 6 hour, and we just kind of in a sloppy way just chart this, kind of an inverse head and shoulders that we've been tracking, and I think we've been tracking. I think in one of my last Bitcoin videos, we looked at this. Remember, breakout target for this kind of up into this trend line right here, which is an extension of that huge triangle that we were talking. So a pullback to that area would 100% make sense for Bitcoin. That could be the bullish rally that Bitcoin sees. And if that happens, remember, going to the daily chart, what's right there at that trend line? The 50-day moving average, a big resistance area for Bitcoin. So the case is there. If S&P 500 is green or sideways for Bitcoin to rally to this area, altcoins to rally, but I'd watch resistance if it happens. That's just a reminder. And then on the downside, if this is a downside week on the short term, this is what I'd be anticipating. Just that first support area, if Bitcoin's going to fall to that neckline of the inverse head and shoulders, it's only a 3 to 4% move back to that neckline. So in the short term, meaning tonight, tomorrow, whenever a move happens, these are the two things I'd be watching for. A break above the 786 line, and then what kind of 6-hour closes are we getting above the 6-hour or the 786 line, or a pullback to this neckline of this inverse head and shoulders, and is there support there? Because if there's not support there, it's game on probably for Bitcoin and crypto markets to kind of start falling. It's important to me because if that happens, crypto, Bitcoin in particular on this chart will be falling into my next second layer of this bottoming out range that we've identified on this YouTube channel. And remember, we've split this entire bottoming range below the 786 line, that yellow line, into 3 areas just because it's simple for me to kind of visualize and kind of create a plan around. We've been in this first range for a while. The fall into the second range could be setting up. One thing I just want to note amidst all of this, it's very difficult to track these markets right now in the short term because we have all this ongoing news, these headlines that keep coming out, some negative, some positive. We might have some positive news, right? Most recently we've had the news talking about interest rates probably going to be 0.5%, right? As opposed to 0.75, which we've been previously getting. So something like that. We also have, you can't forget this chart right here. We have CPI data being available for November coming on December 13th. What does that look like? We've already seen the trend down on Trueflation, which is on-chain data that kind of mimics and reflects CPI data. And so you see this kind of just continuing to fall. So this type of bullish data could really bring Bitcoin into that rally we just talked about, but time will tell. Either way, I think this consolidation is coming to an end on the daily and the 6-hour chart that you see here. The resistance at the 786 line, I believe, coming to an end, and you can just see this consolidation on the 6-hour chart pretty much since the end of November. I truly think coming to an end this week. Time will tell. This is just my opinion, everybody. I'm just throwing all of this out there to you. Again, it's so much more valuable in my view to just zoom out on the charts because this is where, for me as a macro investor, the true game plan is. And then when we start zooming in on the charts, it gets a little dicey. You can't predict what's going to happen next. You can only anticipate all of these scenarios and kind of continue to build and model your plan around those things. And that's what I'm doing. I think this week going to be a critical week for Bitcoin, for crypto. These are just some reasons why. Hit the comments below and let me know what you think, everybody. I hope you're doing well out there. This bear market, it's a grueling one, but I really think we're going to get through it. I appreciate you. I will see you in the next video. God bless.